Okay, so let's think about this. What if the huge news stories, the ones grabbing all the headlines, what if they're not quite what they seem on the surface? Maybe even like a deliberate distraction. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking a really interesting, maybe even controversial idea. It's this concept of using foreign conflict tactically to sort of shift attention away from problems at home. And the big question we're digging into is this recent flare-up in the Middle East. Is it possibly being used strategically to pull focus from some pretty serious issues here in the U.S.? We've gathered a bunch of articles, analyses, research for this deep dive. That's our foundation here, offering, let's say, a different angle on what's happening. Our mission, like always, is to pull out the key insights, a surprising fact, so you can get a really solid handle on this complex situation, without getting totally bogged down. So let's paint the picture first. The Middle East flashpoint. It starts, factually, on June 12th, 2025. Iran launches a major attack on Israel. We're talking over 100 drones and missiles.
Yeah, and the targets were significant hospitals,
Yeah.
infrastructure, not just military sites.
Exactly. And Israel's response, it was fast, very fast. Within 48 hours, they hit back.
Coordinated strikes
Right.
aimed right at Iran's nuclear facilities, places like Natanz in Iraq. Big escalation.
And the human cost is already climbing. Civilian deaths reports say over 300 on both sides already. It's tragic.
And Iran's reaction was immediate, too, vowing total retaliation. It just kicked off so quickly.
That speed is, well, it's part of what makes you wonder, isn't it? How it might fit into a bigger context.
Right. Our sources highlight that exact timeline, June 12th, the quick response, and then immediately sort of nudge us to think, okay, what else is going on? Maybe something closer to home.
And almost like clockwork, Donald Trump enters the scene.
Yeah.
Very public, very strong backing for Israel right away.
The language was strong, too, demanding Iran surrender unconditionally.
Yeah, and even sort of hinting at direct U.S. military involvement, maybe bombing Iranian nuclear sites.
Though he also threw in that line about not looking for a war. A bit to both messages there.
So the analyses we looked at, they really jump on this firm pro-Israel position, the war talk.
They frame it very clearly. It projects that strong leader image, which, is pretty significant just a few months before an election.
Right. And the sources go further, don't they? They don't just say it's foreign policy.
No, not at all. One piece flat out called it a smokescreen. That word really stood out.
A smokescreen? Okay, so that begs the question. A smokescreen for what? What are these sources suggesting it's meant to hide?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the sources try to answer it by connecting it to historical patterns.
Historical patterns, like this has happened before.
Well, the data they present suggests, yeah. There's often this temporary boost in a leader's approval when there's a big external crisis, even if things domestically are, not great.
The rally round the flag effect.
Exactly. It's presented as this sort of psychological play, unify against the outside enemy, distract from the problems within. A known political maneuver, according to these analyses.
Okay, so while everyone's watching the Middle East, the materials we reviewed suggest we should maybe look inward at the U.S. domestic scene. Let's start with the economy. I mean, you don't need a report to tell you things are tough for a lot of people.
No, definitely not. Soaring inflation is the big one. Food prices, rent, gas. It's squeezing middle and lower income families hard.
And the sources point to specifics. Corporate layoffs picking up, wages feeling stuck, and housing costs. Well, good luck affording anything in places like San Francisco, New York, or Chicago. Public discontent is rising.
And it's not just dollars and cents. The reports we dug into paint a picture of pretty widespread civil unrest, too.
Right. We've seen violent protests popping up again. Atlanta, Minneapolis, Portland were mentioned specifically.
Yeah, the sources link these directly to ongoing issues. Police brutality cases, racial inequality concerns, and frustration over, federal inaction on gun control.
It's gotten serious in some places. Deploying the National Guard, reports of looting, rioting. It's not minor stuff.
Definitely not.
And layered on top of all that is the political situation. Gridlock seems to be the word.
Totally stalled. Congress can't seem to agree on basic reforms. Healthcare, policing, minimum wage stuck, governmental paralysis, essentially.
And you see the blame game, right? Trump points fingers saying it's Democrat mismanagement.
While his critics, represented in some of these sources, argue he's actually fanning the flames, amplifying division, maybe even deliberately turning that domestic anger outwards towards foreign threats.
So if you're watching all this unfold, trying to connect the dots between missiles flying overseas and, the price of groceries, what does it all mean? This is where the sources we looked at really try to connect things explicitly. They don't just hint.
No, they draw some pretty direct lines. It's laid out almost like a map.
Okay, so how does that mapping work?
All right, so take inflation and the job cuts. The analysis suggests the response or deflection is this ramped-up talk about war with Iran, military buildup, focus on external strength.
And the riots and protests?
That gets countered with tough law and order rhetoric, but also, again, emphasizing dangers abroad, focusing on external enemies instead of internal divisions.
Okay. And the government paralysis, the gridlock.
That's where the strong leader narrative comes back hard, positioning Trump as the only one decisive enough, the only one who can fix it all, especially in a crisis, cut through the mess.
Wow. Okay, so the sources are basically suggesting a strategy here. For each big domestic problem, there's a corresponding foreign policy posture or rhetoric designed to distract or reframe it.
That's the core argument being presented, yeah. It's pretty direct.
That really does make you look at the headlines differently, doesn't it? When you see those potential connections laid out like that, drawing from the material we've looked at, I mean, what stands out most to you?
For me, it's this idea of reframing. That's the term used across several sources. The argument is essentially that Trump is trying to actively change the subject for the entire country.
Shifting America's gaze.
Exactly. Look over there at the missiles, the foreign threats, to distract from the pain of inflation here, the unrest in the cities. It's about dominating the news cycle, possibly dividing opponents.
A strategic pivot for the national conversation driven by domestic pressure.
That's the conclusion the sources seem to converge on.
Which leads to the